Storm Milton. Don't forget.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I mean, glad to see that you made it through okay, and the rest of the Miami area looked like it was
Spared is the
relatively
word.
spared. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Um,
it has been nonstop raining for the last 4 hours, and I'm talking heavy. So that's a little bit troublesome sometimes. But right now it's okay. We're good here. But
good.
yeah, it's help as you can. There's way too much weird weather stuff happening right now in the U.S. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
Asheville is a disaster. Places that just you wouldn't expect to be this crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting that some of the stories I read were talking about Asheville as people moved there as a climate haven, with the
Right.
idea that it would be unscathed. So clearly, no predicting. There's no predicting. Speaking of Asheville, did you see that there was a Bandcamp compilation that was very quickly thrown together that had people like Waxahachie and MJ Lenderman,
Oh no, that's
but it was
cool.
135 songs
Wow.
in this Bandcamp compilation, all to benefit you know those in need and the rebuilding of Asheville. So worth checking out on Bandcamp.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna check that out for sure. I'm trying to see where it is. That's yeah. Anyway, please, Ben.
well, no, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's it. But and not to move from heavy to light, but you were just before we got on mic, you were saying you were envious of my ability to wear a sweater.
The
Um,
weather.
is that yeah? Oh, that's just because it's cool enough here that I can wear this particular sweater.
Yeah, I mean the world should be temperate, right? Or at least
Yeah,
deciduous where you are. I don't know. It's still humid here. And it has cooled down significantly, and it's great weather. But yeah, I definitely miss outerwear, man. I do. That's the
it's
one thing
funny.
about being down here you just can't wear.
I was walking around. I was out last night with Chris Corrado,
Oh, cool. I
who
love his new mustache, by the way. Tell him I said that.
right. I'll pass that along. But anyway, he and I were walking from his office over to the new J. Crew menswear store because they had a launch party last night for the
Where was
engineered.
the menswear? Where's the menswear store opening?
It's in, and you'll remember the name of the streetwear store or this like a sneaker store that used to be there. I for the life of me can't remember the name, but it's on the corner of Lafayette and Bond, and it's the
Oh yeah,
building that has the handicap ramp on the side of it.
right.
Um, what was that? If you tell me, I will remember.
Clientele.
It was clientele. It was clientele. Yeah,
Ding
so
ding
it's
ding
in the
ding.
it's in the old clientele space. They've got upstairs and downstairs. And last
Oh,
night they
that's
had
cool.
a launch party for the engineered garments capsule that just launched yesterday. So
Yeah, let's talk
Will,
about that.
our
Let's
buddy
talk
Will
about that.
Whitney, had invited Chris, and then Chris and I were having a meeting, so he dragged me along. But anyway, the reason I bring it up
Shout
is
out
that
Will, by the way. Did he DJ the event?
he did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He DJ'd and Deadly Dragon Sound, I think. The reason I bring this up is because we walked out of Chris's office and he's wearing this really nice Barracuda like kind of naval inspired deck jacket. And he's like, "Yeah, it's cold." And I was like, "Bro, you're from Maine. Like, you should love this." And he's like, "No, I wish it was like Miami. This is when I miss Miami." And I just couldn't. It's hard for me to conceive of. I don't ever miss weather like you have ever.
It's there's just things you can't have down here that you can have up there. Like we don't have like I should be at our I should be upstate taking in the
Mm-hmm.
seasons, and
Yep,
that's not necessarily as easy, that kind of thing. Listen, I can't complain, dude. We're very lucky. We're all very lucky to
that's true.
just
That
have our homes, and
yeah,
but it
yeah,
is
yeah,
nuts.
yeah, yeah, of course, that's 100%
But
true.
I want to get back to J. Crew because to that
Okay,
point, like I'm I'm gonna say it, like there is menswear down here, and it's very it's very particular to Miami. It's not that dissimilar maybe from what you would see in a Monaco or another tropical uh
okay,
another kind of tropical place, but we are more seasonal in that sense. But it's very for me at least, it's very difficult to wear a heavy crew neck. It's almost
right.
impossible, and that's where I have the opportunity to do that is at the airports and malls. If I'm going into like city
That's
center
hilarious.
or a
By the
big
way,
building, shit, man, I'm pulling out a
you gotta
hoodie.
get your fit out for the mall. Just be like,
That's
all right,
it's true. Just because you can rock something other than a white tee or a
that's
black
amazing.
tee,
I
you
just like the
know.
idea of you making this an appointment like once a week, or I'm going to go to Annie Ann's Pretzels and I'm going to wear a hoodie, and that's going to be my little like
Oh my
treat for
god.
the week.
That's amazing, by the way. These pretzels. But let's get back to J. Crew because J. Crew does
Okay.
have a great store down here as well. And it seems like this program is working on the men's side. Ben, are you seeing it? Are you feeling it? What was
Yeah,
the energy from the event?
the energy in the event was was great. It was like on the one hand packed, and it was funny because everybody who I talked to was like, I didn't think it was going to be this packed, and I was sort of like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's free drinks and free food inside a brand new store with a interesting collab. Like,
Right,
why would it not be packed?
right. We should talk
In
about
any
that as
case,
well.
yeah, people for some reason thought that it wasn't going to be, but it was. I mean, it was great. It was like I showed up with Chris, of course, who knows everybody. I know many people, and so it was like a lot of familiar faces. But we saw Jacob Gallagher, recently joined the New York Times, and so I talked to Jacob a little bit about what it's like working in the Times building. The first thing he said to me, which was very funny, he was like, "It's designed by Renzo Piano, right?" And I was like, "I did not know that actually, Jacob, but it's an interesting place to start." But yeah, talk to him, talk to Sam Lobbin, talk to Sam's wife Roz, who interestingly gets her haircut the same place my wife does. So we had a funny conversation. Saw Issa Salabi, who Will partnered with her on Nom de Guerre and back in the day. Larry from Throwing Fits was in the building.
It's an incredibly supportive
My
system, dude.
Kenzo Manami.
Shout out
And
Kenzo.
yeah, like the EG crew, because Kenzo has collaborated with EG. Like the EG crew came out heavy, and then yeah, it was just there were lots of people. And
I
then I
can't.
met, who I ran into as I hadn't seen in a long time was Adina Saltanik from, formerly of BPMW.
Right. She's at Sperry, I
And
think, right?
now it's Sperry. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So she was telling us
great.
about that. But she also, we were joking about being Gen Xers in the room. And I was talking about how I'm, going to have my second hip replaced soon. And I'm going to do a podcast called Hip Replacement where I meet young people and talk about what young people are into.
Sorry, Ben. You really do need a second hip.
Well, on the 11th of November, I'm getting my other. I've already had one hip totally replaced, and now I'm going to get my second one totally.
Was getting done.
Yeah. When I got the first one done, it was the doctor was basically like, this is either going to make the other one a lot better or a lot worse.
Oh fuck.
We'll see what happens. And as it happened, it made the other one a lot worse. I mean, the other one was always going to go. It was just a question of time.
But think about all of the years you're going to get out of that new leg now. The new hip.
I mean, I've had the new one for a year, and it really, truly, if my other hip weren't so bad, the new one would have changed my life very literally. So when I have the second one, then my life has changed. I'm, Terminator T1000.
Paddle.
The only thing that will stop me is airport metal detectors, which now go off every time I go through them.
No shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, because the hip is, the piece that they put in to replace the top of your hip bone is or your top of your femur is
titanium.
Titanium. Yeah.
What an incredible metal. Literally.
So this is funny, actually, by the way, and it actually ties to one of the stories in the thing. So anyway, Adina, I told her about this hip replacement, which has been a long running joke that I'm actually going to do at some point. But she's like, oh, you have to meet this kid, and she turns around to a guy whose name I think is, I'm going to check on Instagram and find out, but I'll talk while I do this, but she's like, oh, he is the coolest young person in the room. You have to talk to him. I was like, wow, okay, that's at high advanced billing. So
Give
I go
me
over
the
and
name, Ben.
I'm about to, hang on. I'm just looking at my DMs real quick, or my notifications, because it's in there. Anyway, Adina turns to me and she's just like, yeah, he's the coolest young guy out there. And I had a chat with him and was like, all right, so what's the story? And he's like, well, I started out working with J. Crew first as a model, then as an influencer, and now as a photographer. I just shot the Blackstock and Weber campaign that they did. So his name is Jeremy Mitchell.
Okay.
XXJ Mitch is his IG, because that's where he followed me. But in any case, lovely young dude. And so yeah, I've now got the my list of people for hip replacement. But the thing was, he was asking me about my watch.
Which one?
Well, it was the IWC, which is a titanium, and we were reminiscing about the metal, as it were. So there you go, Jeff. You're right. What a metal.
What a metal, bro. Oh my god. Listen, I'm happy
He
I'm
he
happy you're
he
moving.
also so Jeremy also turned me on to a magazine, a Japanese magazine that I had never seen before, and I said I'd never seen it before, and he looked at me like I was from Mars,
Uh,
which was called Second. Do you know Second?
I haven't heard it either.
Yeah, it was. I
Second,
mean, yeah. So
Ben, I feel like we need to bring a Gen Zer on the show, bro.
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe we'll I'll forward this over to Jeremy and see if he wants to join us.
Yeah.
But in any case, yeah, like very much the kind of Japanese magalog,
Yeah, it's like I see
like
it
cool
sold at
guy product
Clutch.
history, all of that sort of stuff.
I guess I
That
have seen it.
yeah, I mean, I've seen lots of them, but have just never seen this one. And this one reminded me more of, OG Free and Easy and that kind of thing, more so than a Popeye, for instance, which is much more, young and now.
That's right.
But it was cool. It was
I mean,
cool.
I guess men's Nano filled this gap for me, but this is, I mean, I
I don't
love
know
what
that
I'm
one.
seeing.
Nano? How
Yeah,
do you spell
it's
that?
men's MENS space non NON,
Yep.
men's NON, and then space no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it still exists.
All right. I'm gonna have to
So,
find it.
I mean, just on the topic of Japanese mags in general, I mean, I think maybe I've talked about this at some point in the show, but back in the day, at least in Boston, you could go to like a Japanese convenience store and you can actually subscribe to mags because they were bringing stuff over, and some of them were actually distributing the same way.
Oh, is this
You know,
that's interesting. This is like at a Kikokuniya type situation. You could actually sign up for a subscription.
yeah, even smaller. It was just like a Japanese bodega, a Japanese convenience store. So they had all the
Oh, I see. Okay.
everything Japanese. And then they happen to have a Japanese magazine wall. And at the beginning of High Snob, a lot of what we were finding, because there wasn't that much on the web yet, was coming out of foreign magazines, specifically
Yeah, for sure.
Japanese magazines. And the point I was going to say is like we used to subscribe to so many of them, and I really miss those days of like finding
Mm-hmm.
something and then trying to decipher it. I was very lucky as well during that time. One of my closest friends is Japanese. He actually went to university with him, so I used to send him photos and ask him to translate shit. But Japanese magazines are insanely important. I think we don't see enough of them here.
Right.
But I used to love picking up the reference style ones, like I guess Free and Easy to some extent was a little bit reference, but less editorial and more reference. So Lightning,
Right.
as an example, was something I would grab.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're into the true like product catalog history, finish fetish worship type shit.
Yeah, we can talk about that another time. But yeah,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, it goes without saying. It's the appeal is there. I just, to a certain degree, I start to wonder how much information can my brain absorb
totally,
about these little minute details.
totally.
But it's funny, we were talking about.
The truth is your brain can. You've got a brain that can do it. I
guess
see you
so.
do it every day.
Yeah, I suppose. I was talking to Jeremy
Which
and last night about Amatora as a a vector in this whole conversation about Second, and was asking whether he had read Amatora, and was just talking about how the interesting thing about that kind of Japanese otaku detail orientation came out of exactly as you were just describing, the fact that there was no information, and so they had to scrutinize imperfect information to try to get to try to draw conclusions, and then they would draw conclusions that would be wrong, but the things that they would do that were wrong ended up being as cooler than the things they were trying to mimic, which is so kind of amazing.
Yeah, I know that to the average consumer, like they don't care about this shit, right? But if I think about like where classes in culture should be, which I guess more and more you're seeing that at the university level, it is about things like Amatora and what David's been able to write. By the way, I just this week I was thinking about David X. Marks. If folks don't know him, wrote Amatora.
David W. Marks.
Sorry, I said X. I'm thinking of what's his name at New York Times. Because anyway, David W. Marks, one of the tech writers, uses an X in the middle of his name at
Oh,
the
right.
Times.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know the answer to that, but all right.
Anyway, David is working on a pretty outstanding new book, as we've talked about before, and I feel like I need to hit him up because it's so. I'm really interested to see where he starts modern culture. It's a really interesting idea.
Oh, well, he's. I mean, we've talked for the book, he and I don't know whether he'll just use the conversation we had in the background or whether I'll end up in it. But he, I mean, it's basically a history of the 2000s, so it literally starts with 2000.
Oh, okay. It's a history of 2000s. Got it.
Well, no. Sorry, I should
1901.
restate that. I should state that. No, it's a history of the first quarter of the 21st century. So it's a history of cultural history of 2000 to 2025.
Super.
You know, for all intents and purposes, I think it kind of starts with 9/11, but you know, possibly Y2K. But I think 9/11 is really like the inflection point.
I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. It's interesting, and we can have a conversation another time about it. But this kind of leads a little bit into two stories on Crocs. I don't know why these guys always come up with those, Ben. The first is the one that you shared from Fast Company about how now your pet can have a pair of Crocs. It's actually specifically called Bark, if I'm not mistaken.
You could put Crocs on your dogs before, and now you can put Crocs on your actual dogs.
Yeah, I love this is what I love about these conversations. Pull out
the terrible jokes. Yeah, me too.
I mean, here's the thing: is it cute? Yes. How long is it going to last? I don't know. I don't know about you, but my dog hates putting shit on her feet. Right.
Same.
So not every dog will be into this. But I think the bigger Croc
but the
story,
fashionable dogs, like the streetwear dogs, they'll be super down.
Wasn't there a streetwear dog?
Probably. I don't know.
I think there was a menswear dog, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever happened to menswear dog on Instagram? Anyway, the other thing that I think is it's just incredible the run these guys are having. They're actually the co-brand at McDonald's right now. So you can go to McDonald's.
Crocs is, yeah.
It is, and guys, it is a real collab. And how can I not lie and say that as a piece of art, the kids' Happy Meal clog is not dope with that Happy Meal? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like you've backed yourself into a triple negative there. So I'm still not sure whether you actually like the thing or not. But either way.
So for those that haven't seen it,
it's remarkable. Yeah, go ahead.
It is very Ron. It's not very Ronald McDonald. It is a standard classic clog, in McDonald's red and yellow, and then with just an awesome Happy Meal. And
the Happy Meal as the gibbets, or you mean it comes with the Happy Meal?
Okay, it has a Happy Meal gibbet. And
okay, got it.
The magic arches, it's really well designed. I'm curious who did this. If you look at a top view down, it has the McDonald's arch, or smile rather, so that as your feet are together, it's about the positivity. It's fantastic. They're 54 bucks, which is, and quite frankly, sold out in almost every size. It's crazy.
Yeah. I was gonna say I am resolutely and forever anti Crocs at this point, mainly because
you're holding out well,
stance that I've taken. It's like being vegetarian.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it is.
I'm holding out. I am going to get you the Croc socks though, because the socks are awesome. I'm sorry, they are.
Okay. All right. I don't know. But in any case.
But listen.
I recognize the success of their partnership and marketing efforts.
But again, who wins more, Crocs or McDonald's? This one feels 50-50.
In this, it's funny you should ask that. On the one hand, I agree with you that it's a 50-50 win for both. On the other hand, it seems very obvious to me. And so I don't know that it's necessarily a win for either of them. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't surprise me at all.
This is not a surprising one, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Real quick, speaking of the surprising stuff, did you notice that Complex Con Miami, Las Vegas has been rebranded to, is it Travis Con or Scott Con?
Cactus Con.
Wow.
I did.
Wow.
I did. Thirsty.
Again, I don't know, dude. Look at the brand list for it. I have to say the brand list is really interesting. And these guys can throw events. I'm interested to see how Rick Owens shows up in a Cactus Con.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, we should I'll give the background on this one. Basically, Complex Magazine Complex Con is returning this year with a first big show in Las Vegas. November 11th, I believe, and they have formally changed the name of the show to Cactus Con, or maybe they had and I hadn't paid attention.
I don't think I think that's a I think it's a marketing thing. But I mean, it's a clever marketing thing. I'm not mad at it as
Right.
a marketing technique.
Well, there's he has his own festival, right? That's the thing. He has his own
Right.
thing. It's interesting to see him marketing this on his property. Like it's on his Instagram. It's a big deal. I love how the clouds come around your ears as you're thinking, Ben.
That's just me not knowing how to control these bloody Zoom emojis. If those for those of you that are not watching this podcast, it's like you get on and Riverside, the software that we record on, has the same annoying thing that Google Meet and the others do, where if you make gestures, it sends images and emojis.
Yeah.
I find that the whole thing incredibly annoying. Um, A, because I can't control it, and that's maybe me, but B, just because I feel like you don't need to project my emotions for me. Like, chill.
Keep your face straight. On to a
Come
couple
on,
more
keep my face
serious
straight.
items. Just don't move it. Uh, Hollywood Reporter's a list of 50 most influential influencers. Always love a good
Yeah,
title.
well, I mean, given that our friends and former guests Adam Faze and Kareem Rama both made the list, I don't know if it's
Trend.
a more serious topic. They're both pretty lighthearted dudes, shall we say. But it was cool. I was really pleased for those guys, and then just generally, it's interesting to see this changing of the guard happen. Um, with lists like this.
Do you feel like there are marketers that are still constantly looking for lists to almost, one of the things I find interesting about a list like this is that it almost validates them, regardless if you think Hollywood Reporter is well read, you know, they probably, they served up a story that works, and it's going to be a big benefit for all of these creators, right? More brands will look at this, especially within the studio world, and
I would, yeah, I would think so for sure. I mean, look, just anecdotally, I am part of a, let's call it a community of marketing and strategy people called Sunday Dinner that a woman named Lindsay Slaby runs, and it's kind of an invite only thing, and it's hard to get into, and it's a pain in the ass, and all for good reasons because it's incredibly valuable. But I was looking the other day for a cultural calendar that spanned um let's call it entertainment and music, that spanned industry and marketing events, that spanned public holidays and all of that sort of stuff. Just like the giant compendium of things that you could potentially plan a year's marketing calendar around. And you go to Sunday Dinner and there it is, right? Like somebody has made it and there's a link to it and all of that sort of stuff. I would imagine a story like this Hollywood Reporter thing becomes catnip for people, you know, in a similar state to that, where they don't have a Sunday Dinner community of experts to lean on, and so you just sort of Google top influencers, and lo and behold, here comes the creator A list, and it's like, great, done, work done. Now I can just think about contacting these people. So yeah, I would imagine it's probably very successful for them.
yeah. On that note, I think it's super interesting. Like it's the numbers hold true. The numbers hold
Yeah.
true when you look at them of how and what you're reaching, and that's the scary truth of it. I don't know. What do I mean by when I'm saying that? It's clear that it's effective and it works, but it does
Yeah.
cost a pretty penny to get done as well, right? So where do you go as an advertiser or marketer who's trying to? You're not even trying to build or position your brand. You just want to spend and tell a product story. You know, it's ads, dead simple ads just work.
Yeah. Well, it's true, and beyond that, ads that are, you know, proffered by people who have engaged audiences and real parasocial relationships with their audiences work better, right? Which is why you end up with Publicis, for instance, the first or second largest ad conglomerate out there buying Influential, right? The influencer clearinghouse rep firm, and bringing them in as a service across all of their agencies, right? And then it's why Kareem and Andrew Quo, who are partnered on Subway Takes and on Keep the Meter Running, are able to command you know very respectable money from brands, but also insist on and retain creative control over their ideas. I mean, I worked on a project with Kareem earlier this year, and Andrew, and the thing that they wanted to do was nothing that an agency or a brand would ever have come up with, but it turned out to be not only really inspired and fun and successful, but it also was as informative about the project as anything that you could have briefed and said, here's a script, read it. And so I think those guys have a really intuitive sense of the way to bring these things to life and make them happen. And that's what makes, I would suspect these top 50 creators in Hollywood Reporter, the top 50.
Yeah, Ben, that was really well said, actually. But let's just not forget either. We got to give credit to these guys. Kareem, especially, he's been working his ass off for years around media and entertainment, and it's great to see him. It's great to see him.
The thing that I love about Kareem and about Adam too, and I don't know to what extent it's really true about the rest of the list, but is that they are totally unafraid to fail even now.
Right.
And Kareem talks a lot about this, right? Like, hundreds, thousands of videos and posts and sketches and stuff to put out into the world to see what gains traction. And then even when they know what gains traction, they still continue to experiment. It's not like, okay, we're going to put our arms around this thing and only do this thing from here on out. It's like, okay, great. That worked. Cool. We've got a path with that one. Now let's figure out another path and let's make a bunch of mistakes on the way to do that, which I just like, that's a true creative spirit and an artistic spirit. And I love that.
Very cool, Ben. Very cool. What else we got on the plate? Looks like we have time for about one
more.
Well,
okay. So speaking of those creators, the other thing relative to that space is that Taylor Lorenz was interviewed by and covered by Kyle Chayka in the New Yorker in his Infinite Scroll column, talking about how she wants to dance on the grave of legacy media, which obviously is a clickbaity headline, but also, I think having had having had a sort of a ringside seat to Taylor's experience, I would say we probably can imagine why she would say that. But she apparently said, I don't want to be a writer. I don't want to be a journalist. I want to be a creator. Which is kind of interesting because it indicates to me anyway, this dissolution of the line between those things, right?
Totally.
The modern creator can be a journalist, can be an influencer, can be a business owner, can be whatever. And it's sort of like where you find them and which hat they're wearing at the time is what determines the way to take them. I realize there are problems with that in terms of trustworthiness and accountability, but I also think it's just reflective of the way people are, right? We want to be able to flex and to move into different capacities.
Journalism has absolutely changed, and where at one point a journalism degree or an English degree was some way a requirement to be a journalist in the traditional sense through, magazines, newspapers, periodicals, etc., even to TV some extent. The blog age changed that. It changed whose voice was being heard. And there was a long time where even I fought between the two. Like, look, we're blogging, is not the same as writing. But the truth is that eventually they just really became the same thing. But what started to sort of fall off is the point you made where, verifiability or an ombudsman to be able to look through this stuff and make sure that, the facts are straight, that fell to the wayside. And quite frankly, and regardless of how you look at this, there's a lot of fact-based writing in major publications, and it may lean one direction or another based on how you look at those facts. But yeah, it is call yourself a content creator. Like, I'd wish she was still a journalist first. I'm sure she is. I'm sure it was taken out of context, but because she is.
Kyle's pretty good about that, and they've known each other for a long time. So I would be surprised actually if it was taken out of context. But
but regardless, I'm happy to see how she goes. How it comes through.
Yeah,
more and more. By the way, look at Tucker Carlson. The guy's killing it, regardless of what you think about him. He, independently, it's working.
I can't look at Tucker Carlson anymore. Sorry.
Oh my God! Forget that it's Tucker. My point is that you can build that audience off platform.
Yeah, for sure. And really move the needle. The thing though that I like about this evolution that Taylor is actively trying to undergo, or at the very least evolution and perception, is that it is driven by opportunity and necessity. And it reminds me a little bit, funny enough, of the story that's in Dezeen today about Charlie XCX saying the whole Brat album cover and Brat Green, Brat Summer, all of that came out of a cost-cutting exercise. To
I
just,
love
it's
it.
like, how do we get a cheap album cover? Well, we just make it a color and put a word on it. And it's like, you know, who knows what the necessity there was, right? That's record label
I
cutbacks
mean,
or it's
and
whatever it is. But it's just
that's
like
where
amazing
that's
that
where the talent came through.
that's right. That's, well, the singularity, right? And I don't mean it in the Kurzweil sense, obviously. I don't mean that it was made by a human intelligent robot. I mean that it is singular and distinctive in the marketplace, and it was necessity that caused
Yeah.
that, not calculation.
It's if it's hold on one second, Ben. Okay, do you want me to go outside? All right.
It's time for you to go outside, Jeff, which is convenient because we've hit the half-hour mark.
I know, Ben. Let's call it here, dude, so I can go handle the kids. But let's pick it up because I think there's something interesting about lo-fi or as low pay or just easy and how,
Right.
you know, where are we today on that?
Yeah, for sure.
1 second, girl.
All right,
hold
so
on,
everybody,
finish
this has
up.
been the Culture Club half hour while Jeff, wrangles the fam. Support us by throwing a like or subscribing or sharing or whatever the case is. But hopefully you like this and you'll come back and see us next week as we continue the lo-fi versus low pay discussion into the future.
See you, Ben. Zohar, say bye, Ben.
All right. Bye, Zohar. Bye, everybody.
All right, see you.